Welcome to the Adventure Pro podcast. Interviews, stories and inspiration from amazing people that have made adventure their business. Today's guest on the podcast is a teacher trainer for the Academy of Surfing Instructors and also the Wise Living Yoga Academy. Leanne Bird delivers SUP yoga and SUP fitness courses. She's based in Wales, near Cardigan Bay. Welcome to the podcast, Leanne. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to lately?
Oh, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much for having me as a guest on your podcast. I run a wellbeing adventure business where I focus on bringing wellbeing into the outdoors. And also helping to support and educate people on how they can improve their adventure experience, particularly focusing on paddleboarding and surfing through working on land-based activities, sort of their fitness, their mental well-being, particularly mobility. I just really sort of trying to bring all of that together, helping with technique. On and off the water, basically.
Fabulous. And I've had a quick look around your website, leannebird.co.uk. And there were some really cool photos on there of people doing the yoga, but on the SUP. Is that something you've done for a while then, or is it a relatively new thing?
So I first started doing it back in 2017. I'd seen a couple of pictures on Instagram, but I hadn't seen it anywhere in the UK before. And so I sort of actually had only just become a yoga teacher. Not 2017, quite a few years ago, 2014, yeah. I think maybe. I'd only just become a yoga teacher, and I thought I wanted to give that a go. I was into surfing, and I thought it'd be a great way to sort of help benefit surfers was to do yoga on paddleboards. And so I found a course in Brighton and sort of learned a bit more about it. And yeah, I've been doing it ever since. Hopefully, I think I was one of the first people to set it up in South and West Wales, maybe even Wales itself. So, and now I teach people to be SUP yoga teachers as well through the ASI.
Amazing. So you mentioned that it's good for surfing and it's good for, presumably like with yoga itself, it's good for core strength and things like that. But yeah. I guess it just takes it to a different level when you're on there. It's not just really, really unnerving, just constantly the movement. You have to get really still water to do it.
I mean, still water helps, but you get a little bit more of a challenge if you've got choppy water. But it's actually not as hard as it looks. The boards are pretty stable, when I'm teaching, and I'm sure other teachers do, we progress people so that they start with easier moves, and then there's options for more advanced moves if they are able to do it. So they may spend the first session and they don't even stand up; they do all low-lying postures. Yeah. So there's lots of options for people, but the benefits include, like you say, the core strength. It's something like 4 times harder to do a yoga pose on a board, certain yoga poses on a board compared to on the land. So it's working your core, your legs, your arms so much more than if you were doing it on the land. And it also requires you to be improve your mobility a bit more, because you're really having to stick to that board area and you're having to keep your line. Another thing as well is it helps you to notice whether you're off balance, because on a mat you can kind of be leaning to one side and not really know, but on a SUP yoga session you can actually really feel if the board starts to dip to the side. So it helps you to sort of balance yourself out. But one of the benefits that I really love is the mental benefit. and that's being out on the water, being in nature, and the mental sort of benefits you get from doing yoga anyway, doing the breathing, the meditation, and just you literally cannot start thinking about what am I going to have for tea, because you're going to fall off. So you've got that mindful element where you're really focused for that session. And my absolute favorite posture is Shavasana, the corpse pose, lying on the board with your fingertips in the water. Hopefully the sun beaming down on you. Doesn't always happen. But we've done some sessions in the rain, and as long as you're not cold, that's actually much more atmospheric than just the sunshine.
Yeah, it sounds idyllic. Yeah, it sounds very, very relaxing. And do you ever have many people fall asleep when they're on the board? And then
I think there's a few people come close, but luckily they're lying down, so it's they're not going to sort of roll off or anything.
They're not going to fall in. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Cool. So if we take it a step back then, because I'm sure quite a few people will be listening, going, "Oh, that sounds amazing." So how did this all start? Because I read in your website did you go to India to study yoga first, and then you came back and then combined the two? How did that play out?
So I looked at yoga courses, and I actually found one in Thailand from the Wise Living Yoga, and they're accredited with the Yoga Institute in Mumbai. Yeah. So, and the Yoga Institute in Mumbai was the first place they started delivering yoga lessons and sessions to what they call the common man. So instead of it just being yogis that people would follow around, anyone could come and learn about yoga in these places. So it's got a lot of history with teaching yoga, and I found this opportunity to do it in Thailand with Wise Living Yoga, and it's one of the best experiences I've ever had. We were out there for 5 weeks. It was an intensive 200-hour course. So I came back, and my original intention was to learn yoga so I could support surfers, because I was into surfing, and it just started to develop then as a business, and I started doing yoga classes for sort of general public, not just surfers, and over the years then, like I say, I saw people doing it on paddleboard, so I wanted to give that a go, and I developed that and learnt about the Academy of Surfing Instructors, and started to become a teacher trainer with them, and just sort of developed it from there. And actually it was the paddleboard yoga that got me into teaching paddleboarding, because when I first learned about it, I didn't quite feel, it was with a different company with ASI, I didn't quite feel I had enough skills to keep people safe on the water, and so I wanted to learn how to instruct people as well to keep them safe, and that just sparked a whole love into paddleboarding and teaching people paddleboarding, and it's all just evolved from there, and I just love combining it all together.
That's brilliant. Yeah, but I've often heard it said within a business perspective, if you've got one skill and then you've got another skill, if you converge the two, then suddenly you've created your own niche in a way, haven't you?
Yeah.
Cool. And was there sort of a pivotal moment within that? Did you do it sort of on the side a little bit, and then you had another job, and then did it all take off, and then you're suddenly doing it full time?
So I worked as an ecologist while I was learning to be a yoga teacher, and when I started up my business, and I did that for quite a few years, where I was working full time and running a part-time business, somehow fitting it all in the hours, and I found an opportunity to take a part-time job rather than go straight into running my business full time, and it was way less pay, it was a lot less hours, so it was a lot less pay than my job, and I just thought, I'm going to do it, because I either stay in this job now for the rest of my life or something similar, or I go for it. And I didn't want to reach older life and regret not taking that chance.
Yeah.
I remember one of my colleagues coming up to me in the office and she said to me, if you're not careful, you'll be sat in that chair in another 10 years' time. And it just scared me.
Wow.
And I just thought, no, I've got to do this. So yeah, that was the start of the proper journey, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it an all year? Do you do this all year round then, or is it very much seasonal and then you plan for the summer?
So before COVID, it was very seasonal, and I would work on the other parts of my business with the general public that sort of weren't into necessarily adventure, although some of my clients were. So I would do yoga, personal training, sports massage, and then I would do some surf sessions over the winter because I've got a good group of girls who, will go out whatever the weather. But what COVID has done as a positive, because we've got to try and take some of the positives, is it has really boosted the number of people who've been interested in the outdoors, particularly women and particularly paddleboarding, but also surfing. And that's really boosted the communities around, and people have learned more about the kit they need for winter paddling. There's more people to go out with, and so that's extended the season. People are more interested in going out. I mean, there's not as many people, but that does enable me to, I was doing a SUP yoga session in October. I've done SUP sessions throughout the winter, so it has opened it up, but also with the accessibility of things like Zoom and online, because my clients are often spread throughout Wales, the UK, and the world, it's enabled me to put on specific sessions that are tailored towards paddleboarders and surfers online. So over winter, I put on series of sort of 5-week programs, 30-day challenges, where people can get involved online to keep up their water fitness. So that's enabled me to keep the business sort of more of a year-round thing as well.
Yes, on your website you've got a members area. So how does that work? Do you have a certain set of members and you meet every now and then, or is it purely online? How does that work?
So I'm just relaunching my membership actually. So it was sort of open to anyone to be involved in, but I've decided to niche it into paddleboarding and surfing. So literally on Thursday, I've got a free workshop where people can sort of set their goals for paddleboarding, boarding, surfing, or any other water-based activity where I'm going to launch it. So the membership is going to be available to online and in person. And that will be people joining the membership, meeting up once a month for a workshop, and for people to talk about what they want to achieve that month and have that accountability and guidance of how they can achieve that. And then they'll have access to my programs at a discount, any in-person sessions at a discount. I'll be organising trips and things like that. So if you're someone who's local or is willing to travel, then there's those additional in-person options, but there's plenty of things for people to get involved in if they only want to get involved digitally, or they can't can't access the in-person services as well. So really excited. It's going to be all focused around fitness and wellness and educating people to be and supporting people to be the best water-based people that they can, and get the most out of their surfing, most out of their paddleboarding, and any other water activity you'll be applicable to as well. Yes, I'm really, really excited about that. I'm going to have guest speakers and all sorts. So yeah.
Oh, brilliant. What's been your biggest challenge in your business so far?
I would have to say the UK weather. It's makes planning activities in the outdoors a lot more challenging. And you know, you can have all these exciting things coming up, and then storm decides it's going to come through, or the weather decides it's going to change wind direction last minute, or you know, or the swell decides actually it's not going to appear like, you know, it was forecast, and you sort of read the conditions. And so I'd have to say, yeah, the environment can be really challenging with water-based activities. Yeah.
Sure. And how do you tend to manage that? So you've got someone that's turning up for a maybe a taster session, or they haven't done much like it before. How do you manage that and explain that to your clients?
So I'm really lucky that I've got a location near me that's quite sheltered. So I've sort of developed my understanding of sort of pick-up spots where I sort of know what conditions it can handle. So it's less likely that something like that would cause a problem, but I still may present a little bit of a challenge. So I would you know, explain to the customers about what the conditions are doing today, what impact that's going to have on the session. For example, sometimes with SUP yoga sessions, maybe the wind's been a little bit stronger than we were hoping, but it's still within a safe remit. So you know, I conduct all of the sessions sort of low level, so that there's less likelihood of people falling off. You know, if there's a little bit of chop under the board that we weren't expecting. So just trying to adapt to those weather conditions. You know, if it's looking on the forecast the day before that it's really not going to be feasible, then I would let people know the day before rather than sort of just rocking up on the day. But otherwise, you just try and work around it, come up with different ideas. I've run many a paddleboard fitness and coaching session where, you know, I've had a plan and I've turned up and the conditions haven't been what they were expected, but there's still been a workaround. You know, even if it's just fitness on the beach and running a little bit into the sea and doing some star jumps in the sea. You know, I found ways to sort of work around things. So, but sometimes you do have to cancel, unfortunately.
And I'm guessing that just comes with experience, as in, you know, I've been in situations before when clients have turned up and the weather has been awful, and I haven't had things in my toolbox to do. And does that just come with experience of knowing what could be possible?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you know, especially when you first start out, you just don't know what to expect, and you don't understand how the conditions affect your location. You don't, you know, there's just all of this bits of information that you pick up over the years of what the forecast actually means on the ground, most likely, and how that connects with what the tide is doing, and sort of, you know, whether it's a spring or a neap, you know, all these things can make a difference. And it's like being a little bit of a detective, and you've got to get all the clues together and try and come up with, I guess, who you think the murderer is. It's kind of like, you know, what you think the condition's going to be like. And the more experience that you have doing that, the more fine-tuned you get, but still get it wrong sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. That's part of the adventure. So on your website, I've also seen you've got some pictures of some food. So is that, how does that play with regards to your wellness programs?
So I like to include nutrition because it's really important to have a good energy source. So you know, people who want to go out and maybe paddleboard a bit longer or go for a longer surf session, or they're trying to be dynamic and then just not getting that out of their session, or, you know, or maybe they feel really drained afterwards. Quite often it can be down to nutrition. and just not fueling themselves properly a few days before, the night before, that day, during the session, those sorts of things, and also eating the right things afterwards. So I'm really passionate about making sure that I provide a holistic advice to people on wellness. It's not just about fitness and mobility, it's getting them to understand how nutrition affects their energy levels, and just sort of learning a little bit about their body and trying to make it tailored to themselves as well, not just you're a surfer, you should eat this, or it's sort of understanding their body type, what sort of works for them and what doesn't.
Sure. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I can't put my finger on exactly what the dish was, but it looked absolutely delicious. I was salivating, but it did look good, I have to say. Cool. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I always finish each podcast with 3 questions. So the first question is, what piece of advice would you give to yourself 10 years ago?
I think for me, it would be to stop procrastinating and get on and just do it, and that you are good enough and that you'll find your way through and you'll learn all the things that you don't know. Just do it. I think, particularly in the earlier years of my career, I didn't give myself enough credit that I could do it, and I spent far too long being safe and being careful while other people were starting to build their businesses, and sort of getting to a point where they were sort of elevating above what I was doing. And if I just could have told myself then just to get on with it, then that would have been some good advice, I think.
Yeah, start now and get perfect later.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant. Cool. Number 2, what valuable resource, so this could be a book, YouTube channel, piece of equipment, blog, podcast app, or other, can you recommend to help others following a similar path?
So if they're just interested in understanding more about sort of wellness and having a holistic overview of either paddleboarding or surfing, then I would recommend a podcast for paddleboarding called The Joy of SUP, with Joe Mosley. That's a brilliant one, some really inspiring SUP women talking about wellness in particular and social aspects. With the surfing, I'd recommend the Surf Summit, which is coming up on the 13th of March, which I'm going to be speaking at, but we've also got a surf nutritionist, we've got mindset coaches, we've got surf coaches, myself looking at mobility, some other aspects around mindset. So that's going to be a fantastic session, really good resource there. However, if they're looking to get into the industry, either as paddleboard instructor, paddleboard yoga, paddleboard fitness, or surfing, I would definitely recommend checking out the Academy of Surfing Instructors website, and what courses they have on offer, because there's some really exciting stuff coming through.
Oh, brilliant. Great stuff. That's 3 very valuable resources. I enjoyed those. And the final question is, what would you like to see change about the adventure industry?
I suppose something that I've seen happening already, which I really welcome and I'd like to see more of, is just more accessibility to people who you wouldn't normally would say that they're an adventure person. And I've seen it a lot with the pandemic, and all sort of people from different backgrounds and different fitnesses are getting into particularly things like paddleboarding. And I think it's really fantastic, and I'd like to see more opportunities for people like that, to encourage them, like those who already have, to sort of break away from their desks and get into the outdoors and experience nature, and realize that it doesn't have to be all about adrenaline, and it can be if you want, but there's some serene and just magical experiences out there waiting for them.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for your time today, Leanne. If people want to get in touch with you and find out a little bit more about what you can offer, where's the best place for that?
So they can get me on my Facebook page, which is Leanne Bird Wellbeing and Adventure, or actually it's Leanne Bird Wellbeing on Facebook, and Instagram Leanne Bird Wellbeing Adventure, or they can email me at contact@leannebird.co.uk.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for your time, Leanne, and maybe in the future we can do a round 2, see how you're getting on.
Fantastic.
And yeah, good chatting to you.
Yes, you too, Tom. Thank you very much for inviting me.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to hear the next one, please subscribe. Please share the podcast with your friends and followers. You can also find the Adventure Pro podcast on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook @AdventureProPod.